Welcome to BAM, Badass Moms with Lori and Jenny. We are moms on a mission to share women's stories about life, fitness, aging, relationships, travel, and much more. Hello, friends, and thanks for listening. I just wanted to take a second to give you a quick reminder about subscribing to the show. If you have not already, just take a moment and do so. This will make sure that you never miss a daily bite or an upcoming episode. And in addition to that, if you have a few extra moments and like to drop us a review, we'd really appreciate it. And there's also a sponsor of the show located at the bottom of all of our episodes. Once again, thank you for listening. Thank you for being badass. Hello, everybody, and thanks for joining us on another episode of the BAM with Lori and Jenny. Today, we have an extraordinary badass mom, Shawn Brokemond. Shawn is a former teacher turned adventure and fitness entrepreneur. Today, we're going to discover how she has overcome fears, embraced movement, and built a business that now empowers women to live boldly and adventurously. Another thing about Shawn that's super badass is she is a base jumper. So we're going to chat all about that today. Shawn, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yay! Have you. Yeah. So Jenny and I always like to get a little background about our guest. And you have so many amazing things. You were a teacher for many, many years of your life. We're going to talk about that. You're still a teacher, which I love, just kind of a little bit different. I want to talk about your journey of, you were always an athlete, I think, and very interested in sports at a young age. And, just kind of take us on a little journey up until your current now, and we'll jump in and ask questions along the way.
Okay, great. I've always been an athlete. My parents tell me from the time I was born, I was sort of running. I came out running. I was the only child of 4 that they had to put a harness on because they couldn't keep up with me.
Like at Disneyland, my mom had like a leash on me. I was like, that's cool.
Yep. A leash. I have a picture. I have proof. And so apparently I would just run off or run away all the time. And when my relatives would watch me, they would just be exhausted. They're like, oh my God, you can have her back. Yeah. Jumping and running. And I guess I've always been in motion, which is why I love to move. So sports, I've played just about everything you can imagine sport-wise. And what else can I tell you?
Favorite sport.
Favorite sport?
Yeah, what was your favorite sport? Yeah, like as a child, I feel like, we all kind of play all things, but there's one sport that we kind of gravitate towards or really starts to kind of, build the character we become on not just the field, but, in life.
Well, so I don't know if I can pick a favorite because I have seasonal sports, I guess. I mean, like I love snowboarding, but obviously I'm only doing that during the winter. Growing up, I think it was basketball. I swam and played softball and, did all sorts of other sports, but I was really into basketball. We had a basketball court at our house and spotlights on it. And I just remember being out there shooting around, in the dark, 10 o'clock at night. And so that was definitely a favorite. And then in college, I rode crew, but that was probably one of the hardest sports that I've ever done. And I loved it. It was very rewarding. And
it's a super neat sport, right? Like I feel, growing up in Colorado, it's not necessarily something that's offered.
No, exactly.
So I think it's pretty neat that when you hear about people that get into that particular sport, you're like, I wonder where you grew up because it probably wasn't Colorado.
Yeah, no, Indiana. And then I would say like right now, I guess mountain biking is probably the one sport that I do all season, all year round. Yeah. I love it. I never get tired of it. I'm always thinking about the next ride, the next place to ride. I mean, I live in Mill Valley where mountain biking was invented and we have great trails, but I feel like everybody else has better terrain to ride on because
you're just geared with the terrain around you. I think as a cyclist, that's what happens. I love to ride my bike too. And, we're outside of Boulder and I'm always like, you just ride the same rides. So I think you ultimately get bored, even though they're fun, fantastic.
That's true. But it's the single track. I love I like technical riding. I like downhill and we have a lot of fire roads and we have great downhill. We just can't ride on it. They don't allow bikers on it. So that's interesting. That's the difference. In other states, bikers and hikers, ride on the same trails and everybody loves, being out there together, but not the case. So
That's so interesting. Has it always been that way there?
What's that?
Has it always been like that there? Or was that like a...
Yes.
Okay.
It's always been like that. And they try to open up trails, single track. We almost had some new single track opened up, and then it got shut down. Like, I think it was last year or not too long ago. So it was really exciting. And we're like, oh, cool. Can't wait to get on that trail. And then the next day, like we hear, it didn't pass. And so that's a bummer, but I do love riding. And so I do travel to ride and just dreaming about, going to this place and that place.
There's something about cycling. I am a huge cyclist, and I love lots of sports also, but something about being on a bike. I have a gravel bike, and it's just, it's therapeutic.
Yeah, it is. I like the way the sound, the tire, when you're going over gravel, like I love that sound.
Like you get to meditate a little bit.
Yeah, or something. I don't know. And I remember that from childhood too. When I learned to ride a bike, I learned to ride a bike really early. I think I was 3 or 4. Was 4. And I just remember riding around in the neighborhood all the time, on my bike. But we had those banana bikes. And my sister and I would ride each other. So I'd either be on the back. And I just remember being mesmerized by the tire, and going over the gravel and the ground. It just sounded really cool.
Did you ever put the playing cards in your spokes?
Yes.
We just put them like in the spokes, and then it would make like a motorcycle-y noise.
It'd make a noise. Yeah.
Yes.
That's so funny.
So,
I've forgotten all about that. I totally forgotten all about that.
Well, you can do it later. You can impress your friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Or the kids that I ride with. They would love that. I've never, no one has recreated that.
Yeah. That is so funny. So obviously very athletic in your youth, still very, very athletic, but you were a teacher. So I want to talk about that. You were a teacher for many, many years of your life. And I want to know how you got into that and, the turning point, that, like we said before, you're still teaching, but in a different way, how that kind of came to fruition, but kind of how you got into teaching and where that's led you to.
The teaching journey, I think I started out in business, and I think I knew that I always wanted to be a teacher or do something where I was working with kids. So, but I was thinking like, oh, teachers, don't make that much money. I don't know. I need to do something, more lucrative. And so I had gone into business, and then, 3 years in, I was like, I don't like this. I'm not good at the math. So then I, decided to change schools and majors. And then I got into a great teaching program at DePaul University, and I wanted to work with young children, so got an early childhood education degree, so birth through 3rd grade, and was a teacher for 25 years. I loved it. I always loved children, and growing up, my parents, like when I was a teenager, they wouldn't let me get a job, and so I babysat. That was the only job that they would let me have. My dad's like, you're going to work the rest of your life. You don't need to, work at the grocery store. I wanted to work at the grocery store. So anyway, so I babysat, and I was like, this great babysitter that everybody wanted to, have. And I remember families in the neighborhood sort of, booking me, like fighting over, like, are you free next Friday? Oh no, I'm busy. I already have a job. Okay, well, what about the Friday after that and the Friday? Like there was not a lot of good, I guess, care, for people going out on the weekends or whatever. And so I had a lot of business. So
That's
I did
amazing.
You
must have saved up a lot of money as a teenager.
I did. I did. I really did. I made really good money babysitting, and I had, a lot of people. And so I knew that I loved children, and I liked working with children. And I think that's how I knew I wanted to be a teacher in the beginning, but just, took me a few years to get to that.
Yeah. You weren't a PE teacher. I can't believe that. You weren't, right?
I was not a PE teacher. Everybody tried to tell me that, why don't I teach PE? Like, I don't want to teach PE. I want to teach science and math and,
That's cool.
I want to teach all the subjects. But yeah.
I've dreamt of being a PE teacher. It sounds like it would be so cool. But you kind of are doing it now a little bit.
I mean, it is, I liked doing activities, things with the kids. So that was great because I'm an active person. And so that was second nature when kids, couldn't sit still. I was like, okay, get up. We're going to do this. We're going to go, we're going to play this game, or we're going to jump around, or we're going to go run around the block, or, whatever. Always excited to play with them at recess. They loved me because I was the teacher that didn't sit and watch them, but I actually played games with them and, would kick the ball around or, throw the ball or play basketball or whatever.
I love that you say that, because I feel like not a lot of teachers do that, right? I feel like, they're a teacher and then it's like recess happens. And I'm not saying obviously if that's their break, but if they're out there, it's like, engaging with the kids in that kind of style, I think builds not just, this is super fun, but it builds trust and so many other things. So I think that's very cool.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it was fun. I loved playing.
Yeah. And more of us need to do that. I think about kids now and sitting at a desk, and adults too, right?
Yeah.
Sitting at a desk all day, like I can't do it. I don't know how I made it through school.
I know. I mean, there's so many kids today. It's like now, with technology and all that, kids have changed so much. Their attention span is so short.
Yeah.
So short. So
I got mine was short as a kid, right? Now
right. Yes. Yeah. And now, I mean, it's just, pretty much non-existent. So really the sitting at the desks are really hard for kids. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really hard. I have an 8-year-old and, he's very active and I love that. But he's also, I think, struggles with just being in the moment. He's always like, what are we going to do next? What are we doing tomorrow? I'm like, this is doing right now, obviously. I mean, when he's playing the sports, he's in it, he's focused. But as soon as it's done, it's like, what are we doing next? There's just constant need, being entertained or just having a plan. Whereas I feel like back when we were younger, we didn't have that. It was like, you had to figure things out. I think the brain has changed so much.
Yeah. And I figure it out.
Yeah.
Be bored. It's okay to be bored, right? Like that's the message is, it's okay if you can't figure out what to do right now.
Right. Just sit there. Be in your head for a few minutes. It's okay.
Yeah. Well, and I think of the stuff that we did when we were bored, right? And we would come up with creative things. Like, again, this things in the spokes on the bike, right? Like that stuff came out of, I'm bored. I'm going to do something. And so you come up with these creative things. So yeah, but there's no time for boredom now. There's always something to take their attention.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
I actively have been trying, because I feel like we become a victim too of constantly needing kind of stimulus. I've been actively putting technology away and focused, right? Because I feel like if, standing in line at a grocery store, like
the first thing you do is grab the phone.
Yeah, but just stand here and be present. What do I need to look at? But it's really hard because we have become victims of constantly needing stimulus. Just stand there and be bored for 5 minutes and let your brain wander. But it's very hard.
It is hard. You're right. I try to do that too. Like the grocery store is a great example. It's just a couple of minutes. But, as soon as did it the other night, there was a person in front of me and I was like, oh, well, let me read my email. Yeah. It literally took 30 seconds for him to get through and then I was next. But it's a good reminder. We need to practice just being present.
It's very challenging. Okay. So you taught for many years and then there became this, I call it like a tipping point or an epiphany or whatever you want to refer to it as, that you decided you wanted to do something else. So kind of talk us through that and what caused it and how you decided your new direction.
Yeah. Well, I like to say I just woke up and decided I wasn't going back to work. But I think, when I really think about it, I think 2 years prior to that, I had taken a sabbatical. And that was because I was burned out, getting burned out, or I felt like I needed a break. And again, it was all, I was struggling a little bit with classroom management, which was my forte. Like I was really good at that, always until technology came into the play and, kids didn't, their attention spans weren't that great anymore and they weren't able to sit. And, I remember saying to my boss a couple times, because we could go to conferences whenever we wanted. It was really nice. We always were supported in, extending our education and learning more. And I remember saying to her, I need a class on classroom management. She's like, what are you talking about? Like, you're so good at that. You got that. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. Something has shifted, right? They're not listening to me as well, like they used to, right? I've always felt like I was having to stand up and do the dog and pony show while I was teaching, science or math or whatever. And so it was a little challenging. Anyway, that got old. So I went on a sabbatical, and then I came back. I was really refreshed, and I was like, oh, okay, I got this. I didn't feel like I needed to quit my job. But then, those 2 years went by, and I just woke up one morning, eyes wide open. I was like, I'm done. Like, I'm not coming back next year. And it was May. I'd already signed my contract, and I marched into work and told my boss, like, I think, this is it. I'm done. So I didn't know what I was going to do. And I started thinking, I love being active. And I think it was that year I had a former coach ask if I would take over his boot camp. And I used to be a participant in his boot camp for like 8 years. And so, he thought I'd be a good person to lead it. And so he asked me to take over this particular section that he was reopening. And so I did it. I loved it. And then I got personal training and went to school for personal training because I wasn't quite sure why we were doing squats and lunges. Yeah. I knew how to do them. I knew what to tell people to do, but I wanted to, understand the science behind that. And so I got my personal training certificate, and then that section was going to close again. He didn't get enough people. And so a couple of people asked me to continue, if I would still train them. And so I thought, sure, I can do that. It was really fun. I had a great time. And so that's kind of how my personal training, job started. And sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, were you scared? Like when you quit and you didn't have a plan, were you scared? Or did you just because it sounds like you kind of kept moving. You're like, well, I'll do this and then I'll do this, like one step at a time. So what was that thought process like?
Yeah. I mean, I was a little bit worried because I really didn't know what I was going to do. And I needed a job. I need to work. Right. But I think like my husband has always been very, very supportive. And I think just the fact that, he was like, yeah, don't go back. Like do something different, you'll figure it out, so he was very calm and supportive. And I think that really helped. Right. Yeah. He's like, we will make it work.
Well, I always think it's interesting how, I've been in the fitness industry for my whole life also. And, I think, although at the time, being a teacher, you were always an athlete. You were always, loved movement, realized the importance. And it was just kind of a natural progression of what to do next, right? I think sometimes you just have to take a moment and open up space for those things to really shine through of your new direction. And I think you're a perfect example of how that happened. You kind of ended one chapter to therefore open up the possibilities of where your next step and your next journey was going to take you. And I think that's awesome. I think it's so cool to see that how you were part of, this workout class, and then it evolved to you basically teaching it and realizing like, this is my calling. And it's more than that. And we're going to talk about that because you do a lot of really cool things. And not only you're a trainer, we want to talk about your business that you currently have, which does all kinds of amazing adventures with women, just women or men, remind me.
Both men and women, but actually the men are kind of trailing off, and I pretty much just have women right now, which is fine by me.
Yeah, right.
But I just wanted to backtrack because I remembered, when you were talking about like that process of quitting and weren't you scared? And another supportive person that I had was my boss, actually. She was, she was super supportive. The school that I worked at, the Friends School, I cannot say enough good things about. I had such great, experiences there. And the boss that hired me, the director of the school, she was amazing. I loved her. She was always super supportive. Whatever, I wanted to do, if that meant leaving and get, I once thought about, I can't remember, it was something I was going to go to Columbia for, or, whatever. And the next day she had, a brochure in my box about, and that would mean that, I would have had to leave, right? So she'd be losing a teacher, but she was just super supportive. And then the head of the lower school, who, was in charge of all the lower school teachers, she was the one that was equally supportive. And she had talked to me about, parent coaching, or I had come up with the idea of parent coaching, but I didn't have a degree in that. Like, I don't even know if there's a degree, but she's like, you don't need a degree. She's like, Shawn, you have 25 years of teaching, children, all different learning profiles. You are amazing. And you're exactly, the perfect person to help parents with parenting. So that was, also in the back of my mind. And I did, do that. I still do that, right? I still help parents and work with parents. It's just not the business that I chose to like really develop and lean into.
It's so funny that we always go to, I need a certification, or I'm not trained. I had this conversation with a friend yesterday because I was saying something similar, and she's like, you've been doing this for 25 years.
Right.
It's just not like, you haven't called it that, but you've been doing this.
Right. And she was saying like, you have more experience than, some of the people that have a degree in psychology or whatever, because you worked with the children, right? Like you have that training.
You have that hands-on experience, right?
Yeah. Like all the different profiles of children, like you've experienced that in your 25 years of teaching. That's more than any, psychologist or, therapist would have.
I think experience trumps so much, when you look at, people like Jenny said, oh, you have to have a certification, so people then go to online and do their, spend their money, do their certification. And then it's like, but you have no experience, so we can talk about training, right? So I've been a trainer for many years also. And it's interesting because yes, you should go get certified and understand and get the knowledge, but also actively being there and training and so from when you started to now, all that you've learned, right? So I just think it's very interesting how, we put so much emphasis on you must be certified. It's like, well, at some point you put that on your resume, but like Jenny said, if you have the experience and, people believe in you, then ultimately is what should matter.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, that's, I felt like I had something to hold on to and something that I could say, okay, I could do that,
It's like cheering you on,
Yeah, it does. It really helps. And everybody was really, just friends and, colleagues. They were super happy for me and supportive.
And sometimes you have to draw into that because you are like nervous or scared or whatever. And you're like, okay, you have more faith in me than I do right now. I'm just going to tap into that.
Yeah, it's really, really helpful.
Yeah. Good.
Very cool. So now let's talk about your business though, because I love it and it's so cool. So tell us all about it. What's it called and what it's all about and what you do with your clients.
Well, it's called Sports Adventure. And I came up with that name because I love adventures. I love going to, different places, experiencing different movement, just people, everything. Right. And so I train, I have personal training at my gym. I train people here and then also outdoors because not everybody likes to be in the gym.
Yeah.
And so I like to take people outside and do what you like to do, if that's like going on a trail run, or maybe you like to mountain bike, or maybe you want to do just an outdoor workout with gear outside. We can do that. I like taking people out on the trails with bands and, getting the strength in with the bands. And then we run a little bit or walk, then do some band work. And I love using the outdoors for training. It's so beautiful and peaceful. And especially where I live.
Nice.
We've got so many trails and, hills and mountains and things to play in that it makes the setting it feels good. Every person that I train outdoors, like I just see them breathe deeply and just feel relaxed for that time. And it's really nice.
I agree. I will say of all the places I've ever trained, I've never seen anyone that I've been with outside during a workout be in a bad mood.
Right. Yeah.
Something about being outside. And not to say like most people are in a good mood inside also, but just a different environment, right? It's a different setting. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah. It's a different energy. And they love it. They walk away feeling more grateful and thankful and all the things, right? So that's one way that I had set myself apart from all that. There's so many trainers right here in my town of Mill Valley where I live. And so just, offering that service of going out and about, and, you don't have to train in the gym if you don't like the gym. Initially, a lot of people who come to me, they can't do it on their own, or they don't feel like they can do it on their own, or it's boring, or they want to have fun. Right. And I think working out should be fun. And so I always like to tap into, what did you do when you were younger? I always ask those questions, what were your favorite activities? I have a lot of middle-aged women, and I hear a lot of, I used to do this and I used to do that.
Yes.
So my goal is always to get them back to doing something that they enjoyed, something that they used to do. And so I do like to create these little mini adventures where sometimes I'll have them meet me in a place that maybe they've never been to. Yeah. That's close, but, just for some extra excitement and adventure.
Yeah.
So I have a question on, so I'm sure you have tons of examples. Do you have a client that stands out where they wanted to come in and they wanted to just start working out, but then they just really latched onto something? Let's say it was like biking or running, and it sparked something where then they became maybe into marathons. I love those stories because maybe they weren't into it, and then all of a sudden it became their wheelhouse of what they loved.
Yeah. I have a particular client that comes to mind. She's amazing. She's been with me for over 8-9 years now. And she came in not really, I think she wanted to get stronger, but didn't really know what that was going to look like. And she always saw people riding their bikes. We have like a strip that everybody, when they go out for a ride every day, you see them riding by, and then they go out to Point Reyes, and there's just this long 50-mile ride.
Yeah.
And she has a house somewhere on that loop. And so she'd always see these bikers go by. She's I wish I could do that. Right. So there was all these things that she wanted to wish that she could do sport wise. And she wasn't particularly a sporty person. And so, she came in and we did some training, some strength and stuff like that. But then she was like, I want to bike. I want to learn to bike. And then I want to learn to swim. And I want to do a triathlon, and I want to rock climb. There was a million things. So we have done everything. And it's just been an amazing transformation for her in her life. I think in so many different ways, found a lot of strength in being strong, and then trying all these activities that she'd never done before.
It opened up all sorts of possibilities.
Yeah.
Well, so has she tried base jumping yet? Because I want to talk about that.
She has not tried base jumping. But she hasn't tried base jumping, but she totally wants to be. Her next thing that she wants to learn to do is she wants to learn to jump off of something into water and not be scared about that. So, I don't know, maybe she says if she goes out on a boat with people, and everybody just jumps right into the water, and she feels a little bit fearful of that. So that's our next work, is how to get her to feel more comfortable where she can just jump off of, the boat, or I don't know. I think I keep thinking about this rock in Hawaii that I always jump off of.
Yeah.
So, and it's 25 feet or, that's scary, right? So I don't know if she's talking about 25 feet, but she just means everybody does things like that. They're like, oh, that looks fun. Let's go up and do that. Yeah. And she's fearful to do it. So
Shawn, you should ask Jenny about jumping off of things and hanging on ropes and breaking things.
I was like, don't tell her not to do a rope swing. I learned the hard way.
Did you not?
Tell her a little bit about that.
Yeah. I had the same thing. Oh my gosh, I've always wanted to do a rope swing. We were in Costa Rica, beautiful little water situation, waterfall, rope swing, the whole thing. And I don't even really know how it happened, but somehow my finger kind of got caught on the knot, and I came out of the water and my finger was bent under my other finger. So it looked like it was missing. So it was dislocated and broken. And 2 surgeries later.
It's from a rope swing, from swinging a rope.
And apparently it's not that uncommon. So
You must
It's
have
funny
forgot
'cause-
to let go, or like you didn't let go right when you should have.
I think that's exactly what it was. And it was, the whole thing was like, I was so focused on not hitting my head on rocks because there's like elements around you that I probably held on too long. So I have that same thing where I want to try all these things, but now I'm like freaked out about
What
it.
if you're going to, what if you break something else?
Yes. So yeah.
So Shawn, because you base jump and you do some of these, scary activities like, mountain biking, all the things that obviously have some danger. How do you work up the confidence and how do you face fear to just do it?
That's a great question. I wear this shirt, this Nike shirt that says, just do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been called the reluctant base jumper because the first time I jumped off of a big wall. So there's different sizes of walls, right? There's 500 feet jumps and lower. And then there's big wall jumps that are like 3,000 feet or higher. And my first big wall jump, it's a different, like you rig your chute differently and all that. So it's a different feeling because you are falling before you can catch air. Like you don't feel the air when you first go off. So you're really, you could flail and you could flip and it may not be good. You got to have a good exit, right? So I stood on this cliff where was I? I was in Lauterbrunnen, in Switzerland. I stood on this cliff for like 30 minutes on the edge with my feet on the edge, like toes over.
Yeah.
And I was just so afraid to go.
I don't believe it. Those are some big mountains.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, and I remember turning around at one point. This whole thing is on film. And I was like, has anybody ever stood here that long?
You had already done multiple jumps, right? This was just this particular.
This was this was jumping, 3,000. This was bigger.
Big.
So
yeah.
I just didn't know how it was supposed to feel. So immediately when I left my feet, finally I did it. My friend went with me at the same time. So that helped me.
Yeah.
Just having him go at the same time. Well, as soon as I left my feet, I was just like, oh, it all made sense and it felt great. And when I came down, I'm like, let's go do that again.
Oh, yeah.
I was so excited. But yeah, I just was nervous. And the same thing with jumping, off of not so big. You get a countdown, like you're with people, but it's I'm nervous. I'm sweating right now thinking about it. It's very nervous making.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not to the same extent, but it's like a little kid going up the high dive and you stand there and you stand there and you stand there and you're like, I can't possibly walk back down the high. Like,
oh no, you don't. Yeah, you are not going to walk down. I did have to walk down one of those big jumps once, but you do not want to walk back down after you climbed up, especially the power towers that we climb in the dark. And it's a lot of.
I think it's so crazy because of that will to live. The only thing I bungee jumped in New Zealand when I was younger. That's the only thing I could compare it to.
I go over the motion that I need to make and I say those things the position that my body needs to be in. And then somebody counts you down. I always need a countdown. So I'm like, okay.
I would too.
And they'll say, are you ready? I'm like, yeah. And so the 3, 2, 1, and then you go. That's all I need is for somebody to count me down and then I go. Because the minute I leave, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And I feel very comfortable and confident in all the things. It's just standing there and getting ready to do it. Like the nerve.
Just like anything. Like the anticipation is the worst part.
It's so bad. It's so bad. So I talked to myself before. I'm just like, I'm not going to stand there forever. I'm just going to go, I'm just going to go right off when it's time.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a question for both of you. And Jenny, I wanted to answer too, because I don't think I've ever asked you this. The scariest thing you've ever done where, Shawn, obviously you've done some scary stuff, but is there one moment? And then Jenny, one thing that stands out where you were just like, that was really scary.
Well, none of mine are physical stuff. All of mine are like quitting my job and going out on my own or a conversation that's super high stakes. I feel all that so much more. At least with physical stuff, I feel like there's so much energy in your body. And then you can I feel like, I don't know, for me, that feels easier. It's still scary.
Yeah.
But there's an accomplishment and then right away it's gone. And some of the other stuff.
We're going base jumping. Is that what you're saying?
I have been skydiving and it was fun.
Did you like it?
I thought it was fine. I wasn't like,
just fine.
My husband was like, this is amazing. But I thought it was just okay. What I really liked the most that I've done so far is the Via Ferrata we climbed, where you are clipped in for part. So you climb part and then you clip in and you go, and it was also in the mountains in Switzerland,
Okay.
or actually this was in Italy. And I loved that. I loved like having to figure out where to put my feet. Like your brain is working.
Are you talking about what do you call those? Where are you climbing? You're climbing a mountain?
Yeah, you're climbing a mountain.
Rock climbing a mountain?
Yeah, but it's hiking mixed with rock climbing a little bit, because
so you're in ascenders that
no, you're in regular hiking boots, and then there's certain parts of the mountain that are like super steep or rocky, or maybe have like a scary pathway or whatever that you actually clip in with a carabiner.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And I loved that. Was
it scary? Were you scared?
I wasn't scared.
Really?
And I usually am more scared going down things than up things too. Because the whole because
your brain works in interesting ways.
I know. Anyway.
All right, Shawn, your turn.
I mean, I guess I just have to say the scariest thing to me is public speaking.
Yeah.
I cringe. I never want to talk in front of a big group of people. I just get so nervous. And then I can't remember what I want to say. And it's bad.
You just start sweating like crazy.
No, so much. Did I tell you that before?
No, but that's just what happens to me.
That's what happens to me too. So do you remember the movie Broadcast News?
Yes, I remember that.
Do you remember that? Where the guy's just newscaster profusely sweating, like his shirt, they're having to change shirts to blow dry him, all this stuff. That's me.
Yeah.
So I had a back to school night that, I was so I was always nervous about my back to school nights, because I did a back to school night once that didn't go well. And it didn't go well because I was a new teacher at the school, 3rd grade, in the summer. I got hired in the summer. And so I didn't have enough time to learn all about the entire curriculum for the year. And they had hired the 2 other 3rd grade teachers to teach me over the summer. And we only got through like the spring or something. So then the final classes, I didn't know about them, but I had to talk about them at back to school night briefly. But I just froze because I didn't know what to say about the Africa unit that we were going to study, because I hadn't done it and didn't know about it. They said, we'll talk about it during the school year. You'll be fine. Right. So anyway, it was horrible. And then I was new, and a parent complained to, my boss and said, I don't think she knows what she's doing. So I had to, write a letter to the, all the parents and just say, like, in my back to school night jitters, I forgot to mention blah, blah, blah. And then I had to write out the whole curriculum for, the last part of the year. And it was just awful. And so it was very nerve wracking. Like, so then every back to school, I have had PTSD, like nightmares before the back to school night, like terrible. After that, I always had a good back to school night. Nothing ever went wrong again. I learned how to do a PowerPoint presentation, where I had pictures of the kids, and I figured nobody's looking at me. They're looking at their kid on screen. It was just a whole thing. But one back to school night before I did the PowerPoint, I had on gray pants. It was a small school that I worked at, or small class size. We had 13 in our kindergarten class. And so there was 26 parents, but we were all in a circle. I decided I was going to do a nice circle. Yeah. Instead of standing up in front, I'd be on their level. I would feel much more comfortable. And so I did my whole presentation. And then afterwards, I stood up to sort of signal we're done. And I had looked like I peed my pants, like 100%. Not just like a spot. We're talking, it looked like I wet my pants. I was like mortified. And there was a door right there to go outside. Like, we had 2 doors in the classroom, and that went out the back. And I was just like, I'm just going to go outside for a minute and dry up. And I'm like, I promise you I didn't pee my pants. it's just sweat.
Isn't it crazy?
Oh
the thing that it's like one thing happens and then traumatizes us forever.
I'm traumatized. I am ruined.
And that's the same way you switched. You're like, I'm not going to be a teacher. No, just kidding.
Exactly.
Yes.
I am ruined. I mean, it's just, I mean, it was to the point where I'd go to the store every fall before my back to school night and get a new dress. And I told the salesperson, can you help me find a dress that has patterns on it so you can't see sweat?
I mean, I always wear black because I'm like, I feel like it hides so much stuff.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah,
That's why I'm wearing black now.
there you go. Me too.
You're in a profession where it's okay to sweat all the time and people just
That's true.
it. So it's lovely, right?
Good for you.
That is true. Okay,
Anyway,
I have to ask you about your son because you are a badass mom. So tell us about your son. And I also want to hear what he thinks about this, the base jumping and all the things.
He's a love. He's super sweet. He was a great kid. He played sport, like growing up, like he was into Legos and, playing sports, but he was also a little fearful about trying new things. And I wanted him to do all the things that, of course, I wanted to do. So I signed him up for horseback riding. I signed him up for this kids on camera thing. Like he did everything. But he was mostly into soccer.
Yeah.
And we moved to California from Indiana when he was 7. So I remember a ton of, I feel like our life started when we moved to San Francisco. Yeah. But yeah, he's got 4 children. So I'm a grandmother. And he just I was always doing at the time when he grew up. I mean, I was a young mom, right? So I was playing ultimate Frisbee on a world-class team and I was traveling like every other weekend. We had tournaments and he was playing soccer and he was like, Mom, I would drag him to my tournaments all the time. And he's like, well, if I have a game, when you have a game, he's like, just leave me with my friends. I want to go to my game. So yeah, he was stuck with a young mom that I didn't stop doing things, right? He went with me. Everybody loved him, but I always had a kid in tow and he got a lot of attention. He had a lot of moms because of that, like all my friends.
Yes.
Yeah.
Question, I feel I've asked it before when parents are closer in age to their children. How do you feel that's made your relationship better or worse or built a stronger bond because, you are a little bit closer in age? How has that fostered your relationship?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, I just think it's helped because I had the energy, first of all, right? A lot of moms are older and they're just tired, especially if you work all day and then you got to deal with the kids. So I feel like being younger, I've always had a lot of energy for him and to play with him and be physical. I remember he would wrestle with me literally on the floor wrestling until he was probably, I think it was 7th grade when he finally pinned me, or 8th grade, maybe. He was strong enough to cause I would beat him all the time and just pin him down. And so I just remember that being a really fun thing that he used to love to jump on me. And, and I think about that now, most moms are get off of me, you're hurting me. You're but I feel like I was strong enough to handle all the rough and tumble. He was the only child, right? A boy. So, there was that. And then just, as a teen, when he was a teen, I remember he played basketball and I loved going out to the court and playing with him. He was in a program at one point in his life and I would always come to that program and play basketball with all the boys in the program. And they just thought, oh, you have the coolest mom. So I felt like a cool mom because I was young and I, could joke with him. I was kind of with it, most kids will just say, my mom doesn't understand me or, oh, you're old, right?
Right.
So he never said that. And I also love that, when kids are, maybe it's early teens, 11, 12, 13, they don't want to be seen in the same spaces with you, right? I don't know if you experienced that. Well, you've got an 8-year-old.
My son still lets me walk him to school and walk him home. He'll still hold my hand, but he's only 8.
Yeah, so he's only 8. But when they get older, they literally want to get out of the car 2 blocks before school.
Yeah.
And I heard about that through all the other moms, but not my son. I could drop him right off in the front in high school and he'd give me a hug and a kiss goodbye. And, so he never needed that separation or, was embarrassed by me or not, you're too old kind of thing. So I love that. That's been really fun. Yeah. I mean,
do they live close by?
He moved to live near my parents in Coben. So they're in Chicago. They're in Indiana.
Okay.
Yeah. So he lives in Indiana now, but he was in San Francisco until COVID. But I try to go home now. My parents are, getting older. So I go home, try to go home a lot more frequently. So I see him enough.
Yeah.
You're not only a badass mom, you're a badass grandma. So you have some grandkiddos. How is it being a grandma? Cause I think it's so funny, as we've got continue to get older, and we envision like what a grandma was when we were younger. And now when you're a grandma yourself, you're like, grandma, what? Like, it's just a different, but how did you feel to be like grandma, like, and get to hang out with these little kiddos?
Love it. I love it. They're so fun. I have his oldest child lives here with her mom. And so, she's 19 and she's like my daughter, I remember, when she was younger, she used to sleep over all the time and she spent a lot of time over the years, in my house and living with me at different times. So we're really close. She reminds me of her dad. Like they have some of the same expressions. And so that's kind of fun. Yeah. And then he's got 3 younger boys that, live with him, and they're 5, 3, and I think 6 months. And they are so cute, so fun, so much fun.
I'm sure.
I just was back home a few weeks ago and got to see them, and they're a lot of fun.
That's a lot of boy energy.
A lot of boy energy. Yeah. I just taught the 5-year-old how to ride a bike a few weeks ago. So I was ecstatic. I mean, literally in 20 minutes, my parents were looking out the window, had them on. I brought the bike from here. And I took the pedals off, and, my parents are, in their 80s and they don't really know about the Strider bikes and stuff like that. So they're like, why are you taking doesn't he need the pedals on? I'm like, yeah, I go, but Mom, first he's got to learn how to, do the striding thing and get the balance. I said, my dad's like, but the training wheels, because that's how I learned, right? And I'm like, that just gives you a false sense of, balance and security. And they just didn't get it. And so they're looking out the window. My mom said, she told me this later. She's like, I was watching you and I thought there's no way that kid's going to learn how to ride a bike today. And literally, like, we did that whole thing for 20 minutes. And then I was like, okay, so you're going to do this 5 more times. And then I'm going to go inside and get the pedals and put them on. And so I did. And like literally after the 3rd try, he was on his own riding.
I love it.
So I was like, oh my God. I felt so proud.
We would have all learned to ride our bikes much sooner if they would have had Strider bikes, but no, our parents had it on. They're like
riding and you're, going from right to
can we take these off? Then you see like 2-year-olds on a Strider bike.
I know. And that's his little brother. The 3-year-old was racing up and down the hill. And I just like, oh my God. I mean, I was getting worried because he was going so fast. And I just thought, and you have no brakes and you're going that fast.
Yeah.
How are you doing that?
It's like really, no fear. We're just like, I got this.
Yeah. It's so amazing. But yeah. So anyway, that's the grandkids.
Love it. Awesome. If you in this very moment had a piece of advice for any woman out there that is maybe thinking about making a change or doing something different, like, you have any words of wisdom?
Yeah. I mean, I guess the biggest thing is just prioritizing yourself. That is my biggest message right now to women, especially women in midlife. And, people don't prioritize themselves. Women don't prioritize themselves enough. And I think that is the best thing that you can do for yourself, right? Rest and shouldn't be a reward. Yeah. You need to rest. You need to take care of yourself. You need to spend time having some peaceful moments and, working on yourself. I hear a lot of women don't want to pay for themselves if they, want to go on like a little adventure or, a getaway or, whatever. They don't want to spend the money on themselves, right? And I think it's so worth it. I mean, you're running the show, you're doing all the things. You need to take care of yourself so that you can be a better person, a better mom, a better partner, sister, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of my big messages to women is prioritize yourself, get strong. Strength is so important, right?
Yeah. And I'm glad it's becoming more and more of a focus, especially for women in midlife, because it's so critical. So I think I told you this when we chatted before, but I want to go on one of your adventures. And I've already talked to we have to go do this. So
don't leave me behind. I want to go.
No, absolutely. I would love to take you on an adventure. I'm happy to create an adventure if you don't see something on my site that you like. Yeah. I love taking people on adventures. I like showing people that there's so much more, to your day-to-day life.
Yes.
Getting people out of their comfort zone is something I truly love, because you don't have to take them so far out of their comfort zone. Still showing them the possibilities, opening the doors, right, is so important. Because I think you had said it before, it was something that I had watched that you had said that, we get to an age, usually around 40, right? And it's like, you just stop saying yes to things or you're not willing to try things because you think, oh, maybe I'm just too old, or that's too scary, or, so I love that empowerment for women specifically, like, no, just go try something new. You might love it. It might be a little scary,
I know. Women are so afraid sometimes to put themselves out there. And so I love being able to help get them there,
Yeah.
Well, Shawn, you are a true badass, and I can't wait to do one of your adventures. Please tell our listeners how to get a hold of you, reach out, do one of your adventures. If you have a website you want to put out there.
Yeah, sure. My website is sport, SPORT, adven, as an adventure.
Awesome. And then you list all your adventures on your site.
Most of them are on my site. The ones that are repeats that I do often because they're the highlights, or they're the ones that people really, really have enjoyed. Those are on there. And then I'm always creating new ones. So I have a couple of new ones coming up. And one thing that I wanted to say that I'm super excited about that's coming up is I'm doing a women's wellness retreat in Atlanta for Black women.
Whoa,
Focused
awesome.
it's focused on, health and hormones, but really just having a much needed space for Black women to, rest and have some deep conversations, about hormones and health. And
I love that.
Having space to do that where they feel seen and heard. It's not quite full. No, it's not quite full yet. It's coming up in May, so it is happening in less than 2 months.
Okay.
But
I have a couple people in mind I'm going to share it with.
That would be fabulous, Jenny. I would love it.
So,
I love it.
That's so awesome. And that information is also on your website.
That is on my website. Yeah. Serenbe is the spot in Atlanta. It's right outside of Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. Okay. And it is going to be an amazing, amazing experience. I've got a functional medicine doctor coming, and
love it.
Yeah, some really strong women in health and wellness. And it's
so cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Shawn, you're a badass. I love you, and I can't wait to meet you. And we really appreciate you taking time out of your day to chat with us. And we're so excited to share your story with our listeners.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for wanting to hear my story.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Super fun to talk with you.